Pull the plug. We aren't paying for another surgery, my father told the trauma surgeon while I lay unconscious, my heart rhythm fading. He didn't say it with a trembling voice or a tear in his eye. He said it with the cold, flat tone of a man canceling a cable subscription. He signed the Do Not Resuscitate order at 11:18 p.m. on a rainy Tuesday. It wasn't because my injuries were untreatable. It was because the billing department showed him the estimate. That was all he needed to see. A price tag. But when I opened my eyes 3 weeks later, broken, bandaged, and barely able to breathe, I realized the DNR wasn't even the darkest betrayal he'd committed while I slept. What I did over the next 24 hours didn't just save my future. It completely dismantled his. And he never saw it coming because he forgot the one thing I learned from the only person who ever actually loved me. Before I tell you how I destroyed him, please hit that like button and subscribe to Winds of Thought, but only if you believe family is about love, not leverage. To understand why a father would sign his daughter's death warrant, we have to go back 7 months to the day my grandmother passed away and the glue holding us together finally dissolved. I was born with a structural defect in my heart walls. The doctors called it a ventricular septal defect. I was 4 years old when they cracked my ribs open to fix it. The operation took 12 hours. The financial resentment took my parents 2 decades to get over. Actually, that's not true. My mother got over it. My father, Marcus, kept the receipt. Do you have any idea what you cost us, Elena? I was 8 the first time I heard that. I had asked for a new winter coat because the zipper on mine had snapped, leaving me shivering at the bus stop. He was at the dining table, surrounded by a fortress of bank statements. He didn't even look at me. $214,000. That is your price tag. I didn't get the coat. By the time I turned 12, I stopped asking for anything at all. By 15, I was mowing lawns and cleaning gutters in our neighborhood to buy my own textbooks. By 18, I was signing predatory student loans alone, while my older sister, Claire, was packing her bags for a private university fully funded by the family pot. No one blinked. Claire got a convertible at 16. I walked. Claire graduated debt-free. I graduated with a repayment schedule that looked like a mortgage. Claire got celebratory dinners at steakhouses. I got a store-bought cupcake and a handshake, and I took it. That's the part that haunts me. I wasn't furious. I truly believed I was a burden. My father had drilled it into me so effectively. You drained this family, that the guilt felt as physical as the scar running down my sternum. I wore that guilt like my nursing scrubs, every single day, without question. The only person who never looked at me like a line item was my grandmother, Nana Rose. Rose Miller lived in a small cedar-shingled cottage on Maple Avenue in Allentown. 2 bedrooms, a sunroom filled with violets, and a porch swing that groaned in the breeze. She had lived there for 41 years, raised my mother there, and kept her roses blooming through the harshest frosts. I began visiting her every Sunday when I was 23, fresh out of nursing school and drowning in interest payments. I'd drive 40 minutes, stock her fridge, check her vitals, sit on that swing, and listen to her stories. She never once said, "You owe me." She asked, "Are you happy, darling? Have you eaten?" And once, near the very end, her hands trembling, she whispered something that made no sense at the time. "I've handled everything for you, Elena. When the time is right, a man named Mr. Thorne will find you." I just smiled and smoothed her hair. I thought the dementia was creeping in. She was 84. I assumed it was the morphine talking. My father hated those visits. "You're burning gas," he'd snap. "She doesn't even know who you are half the time." That was a lie. Nana Rose was sharp as a tack until her final heartbeat. She knew exactly who I was, and she knew exactly who my father was. She died on a rainy Thursday in March, quietly in her. Sleep in that cedar cottage. My father arranged the service, cheap, fast, efficient. He forbade me from speaking. Keep it brief, he hissed at the cemetery gates. We don't need a scene. I stood by the grave and said goodbye in my head. Nana Rouse had said Mr. Thorne would find me. I had no clue who Thorne was. Not then. It would take a near-fatal crash, a signed execution order, and 4 days on life support before that name meant a thing. 3 months after we buried Nana Rose, I was driving home from a grueling 12-hour night shift. It was 4:17 a.m. Highway 309, heavy drizzle. I recall the dashboard clock because I was mentally calculating my sleep budget. 6 hours if I skipped a meal. 5 if I washed my hair. Asterisk, I never finished the math. The delivery van ran the red light at 50 miles per hour. It boned my driver's side with enough force to fold the steel frame like origami. I don't recall the impact. I don't recall the siren. I'm told I was awake for 90 seconds, just long enough to whisper my name to a paramedic before the lights went out. Cerebral swelling, 4 fractured ribs, massive internal bleeding. The trauma team at St. Jude's, my own workplace, where I scanned badges 5 days a week, had me on the table within minutes. But the hemorrhaging was relentless. They needed a second, more complex procedure, a specialist, and immediate authorization. I was single. No kids. The emergency contact in my HR file was the same name that had been there since orientation because my father demanded it. Marcus Deeply, next of kin. They phoned him at 10:30 p.m. He arrived at 10:47. I know the timeline, because security logs everything. He didn't rush to the ICU. He didn't ask the charge nurse if I was stable. He didn't ask if I was scared. He walked directly to patient accounts and asked one question: what is the total liability here? I learned the details later from a woman named Helen Ross. We all called her Nurse Helen. She was the floor matriarch, 30 years in trauma, with a voice like sandpaper and eyes that missed nothing. Helen was at the central station when my father left billing and cornered Dr. Evans, the trauma surgeon. She heard every syllable. The second surgery, my father said. Give me the number. Dr. Evans gave it to him. $180,000 to $240,000, depending on the recovery. Insurance would cap out, leaving a massive gap, especially since my father had co-signed some of my earlier medical loans. He had insisted on co-signing when I was 18. I thought it was support. It was a shackle. My father didn't flinch. She has no healthcare proxy, he stated. I am her father. I make the call. Dr. Evans nodded slowly. That is the rule when no proxy is found. Next of kin decides. And then my father said it. Let her go. We are not paying for this surgery. Helen told me later that Dr. Evans froze. He stared at my father in disbelief. My father stared back, stone cold. She has been a financial anchor on use her entire life, my father said. Do not resuscitate. He signed the DNR form. His hand was steady. He kept the pen, asked if there was any other paperwork, and turned toward the elevators. He didn't visit my bedside. He didn't look through the observation window. He didn't say goodbye. Helen stood behind the desk, gripping the counter until her knuckles turned ivory. She wanted to scream. She didn't. She did something smarter. She sat down and hacked into my personal file. Every nurse at St. Jude's fills out a crisis packet during hiring. Contacts, blood type, allergies, and a designated healthcare proxy. Most people leave the last part blank. I hadn't. 3 years prior, I had assigned my proxy to Sarah Jenkins. Sarah was my roommate from nursing school. She lived 45 minutes away in Princeton. She was listed in bold letters. Name, number, relation. Helen found it in 90 seconds. She called Sarah at 11:14 p.m. Sarah answered immediately. Helen explained the situation, the crash, the coma, the surgery requiring approval, and a father who had just signed a permission slip for his daughters. Death. Sarah didn't ask why. She just said, "I'm on my way." She drove 90 miles per hour through a storm. She sprinted into St. Jude's at 12:51 a.m. with her ID, a notarized copy of the proxy form she kept in her safe, and hands that wouldn't stop shaking. She voided the DNR. She authorized the surgery. Dr. Evans was scrubbing, and 10 minutes later, my father was already home, sleeping peacefully. He had no idea the order had been revoked. As far as he was concerned, the ventilators would be turned off, and the hospital would call him in the morning to confirm the expiration. Helen didn't call him. Neither did Sarah. Instead, Helen did one more thing before clocking out. She filed a formal sentinel vet report, the kind used for severe ethical breaches. She transcribed my father's exact quote, the timestamps, the signature, and his lie about the proxy. She saved it, locked her terminal, and sat in the break room in silence. Marcus deeply went to bed that night, thinking his financial problem would be solved by sunrise. He slept like a baby. And the next day, he made his second mistake. The one that would cost him everything he owned. My father woke up Wednesday, expecting a notification of death. A timestamp, maybe a cremation form. He had already practiced the speech he would give the neighbors. I can imagine it. The cracked voice, the hand over the chest. "We lost our little girl." The damage was just too catastrophic, but the phone didn't ring. Not because anyone told him I was alive. It just didn't ring. And instead of calling the ICU himself, instead of driving down to check on his child, Marcus spent that Wednesday morning doing something else entirely. He went to steal my inheritance. Here is what I didn't know then. What I wouldn't uncover for weeks. My grandmother, Nana Rose, had already deeded the cottage on Maple Avenue to me before she passed. The transfer was handled privately. It was clean, filed with the county, and my father had no clue it happened. What he did know was that Rose was gone. The cottage was empty, and someone was going to claim it, so he decided that someone would be him. He had a power of attorney document. My signature was on it, except I had never held the pen. He had traced my signature from old medical release forms, the ones he made me sign when I was naive. He took the forged POA to a notary he knew, a guy named Carl who owed him money. Carl stamped it. Marcus filed the deed transfer at the county clerk's office that afternoon. By Thursday, the cottage was in his name. By Friday, he walked into a lender's office and took out a high-interest equity loan against it. $280,000 cash. The money didn't go to my hospital bills. It didn't go to a savings bond. It went to cover bad investments and gambling debts. Debts that nobody in our family, our parish, or our town knew existed. He didn't know the house was already legally mine. He didn't know how the title had shifted. And he certainly didn't know about the man my grandmother called Mr. Thorne. But here is the thing about forgeries. They only work if no one is watching. And someone was about to start watching. Very, very closely. I opened my eyes on a Tuesday. 3 weeks post-crash, the light was sterile and blinding. I knew that light. I had worked under it for years, but I had never been the one in the sheets. My throat felt like it was filled with glass. The intubation tube was gone, but the phantom sensation remained. My chest was on fire. The first face I saw was Helen's, not my dad. Not Claire. Helen. She was by the window, arms crossed, monitoring my vitals. When she saw me stir, she didn't yell. She pulled a stool to the bedside and took my hand. Her grip was calloused and warm. "You made it," she said. "I have things to tell you. But rest first." I tried to talk. My voice was a wreck. How long? 3 weeks. Surgery was a success. You're going to walk out of here. I closed my eyes, not from fatigue, but to process the memory. The van, the rain. My father walked in at 2:17 p.m. that day. The visitor log proved it. He stood in the doorway. I watched him through half-lidded eyes. I saw it, the flash of panic before his face rearranged itself into a mask of relief. I've seen enough families in the A to know the difference between grief and guilt. He rushed over. He grabbed my fingers. Tears appeared on cue. Oh, thank God, Elena, we were terrified. Thank God you held on. I looked at the tears. I looked at the shaking chin. Hi, Dad. I rasped. Claire sent a fruit basket that evening. She didn't visit. 2 days later, I was sitting up. Helen waited until the shift change when the corridor was empty. She pulled the stool close. She didn't sit immediately. She looked at me like she was weighing the cost of the truth. Just say it, Helen. She sat. The night you came in, your father was here. I know. He says he never left. He was here once. That night, he cornered Dr. Evans. He asked for the price. I didn't speak. I stared at the Ford trip. He told Evans you had no proxy. He said he was the decider. And then he signed a DNR. The room went dead silent. The monitor chirped. I counted 4 beats. He signed a DNR. Yes, on you. What did he say? Exactly. Helen didn't blink. Let her go. We aren't paying. She has been a financial burden. Her whole life. I closed my eyes. Not in shock, but in recognition. It was the confirmation of a truth I had felt since I was 8 years old. I wasn't a daughter. I was an overhead cost. A ledger entry that wouldn't balance. How am I here? I found your proxy. Sarah, I called her. She drove through the storm and overrode him. Is there proof? Incident report, time-stamped. His exact words. I stared at the ceiling tiles. Then I looked at Helen. Hand me my phone. She grabbed it from the drawer. I turned it on. 40 missed calls from Dad, 12 from Claire. I ignored them all. I opened my contacts and found a number I hadn't dialed in months. A name Nana Rose had given me. T-H-O-R-N-E. The phone rang twice. Thorne Legal, this is Arthur. Thorne. The voice was crisp, seasoned. Mr. Thorne, this is Elena Thomas. I think my grandmother. Miss Thomas, he interrupted gently. I have been trying to locate you for 4 months. I gripped the phone. My ribs screamed. I know, he continued. Rose Miller came to me 2 years ago. She sat in my office, clear as a bell, and drafted a private will. Not through the family lawyer, through me. Sealed. The will was straightforward. The cottage on Maple Avenue to Elena Thomas solely. A trust with $85,000 to Elena Thomas solely. No other beneficiaries. It was probated 5 months ago, Thorne said. The deed was transferred to... I mailed the confirmation. It came back returned to sender. I called your number. A man told me you moved to California and cut ties. My father. That was my father blocking the mail, answering the phone. I'm in the hospital, Mr. Thorne. Car accident. Coma. Silence. I am sorry to hear that. The house, I said. Is it still mine? A long pause. Let me check the registry. I will call you back. I hung up. Helen was guarding the door. Your grandmother told me you'd call, Thorne had said before clicking off. She said, Elena always survives. Just wait. 1 hour. That's all it took for Arthur Thorne to unravel the scheme and for my retaliation to begin. The phone rang at 53 minutes past the hour. Thorne's voice had hardened. The professional polish was gone. Now he sounded like a prosecutor. Miss Thomas. The deed to the property was transferred out of your name 3 weeks ago. I watched the drip. 1, 2, 3. Transferred to who? Marcus Deeply, your father. Via power of attorney. I never signed a POA, Mr. Thorne. I know you didn't. Because I have the original deed transfer from probate. Your signature was notarized by my staff. No POA was ever filed with my firm. So this new document is a forgery. Yes. And there is more. I ran a lien check. A mortgage was recorded against. The title 6 days ago, $280,000. The number hung in the air like smoke. I could hear Thorne typing furiously. He cashed out the equity, I said. He did. I reached for the notepad on the tray table. My hand was steady, maybe because none of this was shocking. Maybe because I had spent 29 years studying Marcus deeply, and this was just the final exam. I wrote down the numbers Thorne recited. Loan amount, date, notary ID. Ms. Thomas. Do you want to file charges? Not yet. I want to see the full picture first. There is one last thing, Thorne added. Rose left you a letter, sealed. She instructed me to deliver it only to your hands. I put the pen down. Can you come to St. Jude's? Tomorrow, 9 a.m. I'll be ready. I hung up. I looked at Helen. Helen, exactly what time did he sign the DNR? 11:18 p.m., I wrote. That down to. Marcus visited the next afternoon with yellow tulips and a container of Claire's lasagna. He placed them on the table, kissed my forehead, and sat down with the heavy sigh of a martyr. He was excellent at this, the performance. I'd watched it at PTA meetings, at church picnics, at holiday dinners. The weary provider, the silent sufferer. Doctors say you can leave next week, he said, patting my hand. We will handle everything. Thanks, Dad. Claire came this time. She stood at the foot of the bed, clutching her purse, wearing a tight smile that didn't touch her. Eyes, we were so worried, she said. I barely slept. I looked at her. She looked at the wall. My father leaned in, his voice dropping to that warm, confidential tone he used to close deals. Don't worry about the bills, sweetie. We will figure it out as a family. That's what families do. That's what families do. The man who tried to unplug me to save a buck was sitting there, preaching about family. As a family, I echoed. I squeezed his hand. I smiled. He smiled back, relieved. He felt the script was holding. They stayed for 40 minutes. Marcus talked about the humidity, the Phillies game, a leak he fixed. Claire checked her watch 11 times. Then they left. I waited 10 seconds after the door clicked shut. Then I called Thorne. Mr. Thorne, bring the letter. Arthur Thorne arrived at 9 sharp. He was unassuming, gray suit, wire-rimmed glasses, a leather satchel that smelled like old paper. He sat down, mindful of the tubes. Rose spoke of you constantly. He said. He opened the satchel, a manila envelope. Wendy written on the front in shaky script. I opened it. A single sheet of paper. Elena, I know your father will try to take what isn't his. He has done it for years. My pension, my savings, things I hid to keep the peace. That was my error. Don't make it yours. The cottage is yours. The money is yours. Mr. Thorne knows everything. Do not let anyone rob you. Especially your father. You are stronger than me, darling. You always have been. I wept. For the first time since the crash, since Helen's confession, since the cold realization of my father's greed. I wept because Nana Rose had seen me. She had planned for this battle because she knew exactly who her son-in-law was. Thorne waited. When I wiped my face, he placed the thick binder on the bed. The original will, the probate proof, the deed, the lien search. You have the ammo, he said. What is the plan? I sat up, ignoring the pain in my ribs. I want to do this publicly. And I want it done by Sunday. Thorne raised a brow. What happened Sunday? Monthly potluck at Grace Community. My father is the head deacon. He never misses it. Okay, pause. If you are listening to this and thinking, I know this feeling, drop a comment. Should she roast him in public or handle it in court? I wanted to know your vote. Back to the story. 5 days later, I was discharged. I was sore, slow, and bruised yellow, but I was mobile. My father arrived to pick me up with a suitcase. "You're coming home with us," he announced. "That's nice, Dad, but Sarah is picking me up. She has a guest room." His mask slipped, just a fraction. "You'd prefer a stranger over your own blood?" "She isn't a stranger. She's my proxy." A flicker in his eyes. He didn't connect the dots yet. "Fine," he said, grabbing his empty suitcase. He walked out without a word. That night, Claire texted, "Dad is crushed. You're being ungrateful." I didn't reply. Sunday morning, I stood in Sarah's bathroom mirror. The bruising on my jaw was fading to green. I looked like a crash survivor. I put on a simple black dress. No makeup. I grabbed the folder Thorne had prepared. The will, the forged deed, the mortgage record, and the redacted hospital report with my father's quote in black and white. Sarah drove. We parked at the back of the church lot. "Ready?" she asked. "Never been more ready." I saw Thorne near the entrance. He gave a curt nod. I slipped into the back pew just as the hymn started. My father was in the front row, singing loudly. He turned, saw me, and beamed. The proud father, the miracle man. He waved. I waved back. Service ended at noon. Everyone moved to the fellowship hall. Casseroles, folding chairs, the hum of chatter. The microphone stand was set up near the front. Marcus was already there. He always was. He tapped the mic. "Good afternoon, family. I have a praise report." The room hushed. "As you know, my daughter Elena was in a terrible wreck, coma, near death." He paused for effect, but God is good. "She is here today." He pointed at. Applause. Genuine warmth from the crowd. As a father, he continued, voice trembling, "There is no pain like nearly losing a child. I prayed every night. I never left her side. I never left her side." He said it to 100 people who trusted him. "Family is everything," he concluded. He opened his arms, inviting me up. I walked to the front. The room watched with soft eyes. "Dad," I said, loud enough for the mic to catch. "Can I say a word?" He couldn't refuse. Not after playing the saint, of course. He handed me the mic, smiling like a shark. I took it. I faced the room. "Thank you for your prayers. I am grateful to be alive, but I need to correct the record." The room stilled. Marcus's smile froze. My father didn't pray by my bed. He visited the hospital exactly once. He went straight to billing. He asked for the price of my surgery. I felt Marcus stiffen. When they told him the cost, he said, and this is documented in the hospital report, "Let her go. We won't pay. She is a financial burden." Silence. The heavy kind. Then he signed a "Do Not Resuscitate" order. I gasped from the second row. I am alive because a friend drove 2 hours to override him. Not my dad, a friend. Marcus stepped forward. "Elena, stop. You're confused." "That meant this. I have the records." Dad. The room was paralyzed. Marcus shut his mouth. The side door opened. Arthur Thorne walked in. He placed his briefcase on the table. Next to me. Marcus saw him and turned pale. "This is Arthur Thorne," I announced. "My grandmother's attorney." Whispers erupted. Everyone loved Nana Rose. Nana left me her cottage in a sealed will. My father knew nothing about it. I paused. While I was in a coma, my father forged my signature on a power of attorney. He transferred the deed to himself and took out a $280,000 mortgage against it. A dish crashed to the floor. "That is a lie," Marcus shouted, voice cracking. "Rose left it to the family." Thorne opened the binder. He held up the original will, showcasing the notary seal to the front row. "I have the original, Mr. Deeply, solely to Elena Thomas." "Your name is nowhere." Marcus looked at Claire. She was staring at her shoes. I turned to my father. I'm not here to embarrass you, Dad. I'm here because you tried to kill me to save money. And then you robbed me. If this story is making your blood boil, hit subscribe. You don't want to miss the ending. Marcus looked for an exit. She's unstable. He pleaded to the crowd. It's a private matter. Then why is a lawyer here, Marcus? A voice called from the back. The pastor stepped up. Marcus, maybe we should hear this. Marcus slumped. He tried the pity play. I sacrificed everything. Her bills ruined us years ago. I did what I had to do. You did what was cheap, I said. There is a difference. Claire stood up. Dad, stop. Tell them, Claire. Marcus grabbed her arm. She pulled away. She looked at me, then the door. I can't, she whispered. She walked out. As she passed me, she murmured, I should have called Sarah myself. She left. I turned back to Marcus. Dad, here's the reality. Mr. Thorne filed a motion to void the deed yesterday. The bank has been notified of the fraud. The funds are frozen. Marcus began to shake. I filed a police report on Friday. Forgery. Fraud. The notary. Carl is already talking to the cops. You'd send your father to prison? He whispered. You signed a paper to let me die. The room held its breath. I'm not sending you anywhere. I'm letting the consequences handle you. That's more mercy than you gave me. Thorne closed his case. It's out of our hands, Mr. Deeply. Marcus looked around. His friends, his neighbors, the people he had fooled for decades. No one looked him in the eye. He turned and walked out the door. He didn't look back. I set the mic down. I'm sorry for the scene, I told the stunned room. Nana Rose loved this church. She would have wanted the truth told. Mrs. Brennan, an elder, walked up and hugged me. She was so proud of you. Elena. Within 24 hours, Marcus's world evaporated. The bank locked the account. The court voided the transfer. A process server hit him with the lawsuit at 3 p.m. The church board asked him to resign Tuesday night. His clients dropped him. He called me that night. You ruined me. No, Dad. You ruined yourself. I just turned on the lights. 1 month later, the deed was back in my name. Marcus took a plea deal, probation, and full restitution to avoid jail. He sold his own house to pay the debt and moved in with his brother. On a Saturday in October, I drove to the cottage. I unlocked the door. It smelled like vanilla and old books. Nana Rose's scent. I sat in her rocking chair. For the first time, I was in a home that was truly mine. Not because I earned it, but because I was loved. I used to think being good. Daughter meant swallowing the poison my family fed me. I was wrong. Setting a boundary isn't vengeance. It's survival. And sometimes survival looks like a quiet lawyer, a stack of papers, and the guts to speak the truth. If you see yourself in this story, in the guilt, the silence, the obligation, hear me. You don't owe anyone your life. I still go to church, new place, same God, and I sit in the front row now. I'm done hiding. Setting a boundary isn't vengeance. It's survival. I wasn't a daughter. I was an overhead cost. If Elena's victory resonated with you, tell me in the comments, what is the hardest boundary you've ever had to set? Check the description for another story about karma coming home to roost. Subscribe to Winds of Thought, and I'll see you in the next one.